Well, welcome to the Humanity as Organisms Thrives Convergence Room. And it's just such a beautiful energy to have so many amazing people here. And this is a time where we can co-create together, where we can be together. And as you know, the title of this conversation is Energy Healing, the Future of a Connected World. It's such a huge topic, and it's something that we've only just approached as a collective, and so many people are not aware of this. So we're just going to discuss this and share ideas and collaborate, because this is what our convergence room is about. Being able to co-create and collaborate and be in community and support each other. So Tom, I'll hand over to you.
Well, thank you. I'm on a high as these weeks tend to generate. What a gorgeous plenary session. I know many of you were on that session just now with Dr. Vandana Shiva and Linda Tucker, and exploring ecosystem dynamics and exploring the blocks, the non-natural ways that we've stepped into the ecosystem, and just brilliant language about how the earth knows how to heal herself. Yeah. And that can be said at the organismal level. It occurred to me that was a beautiful context for this session, which is scheduled for 90 minutes, by the way. And we talked about wrapping up the Q&A after our presenters work their magic, and we'll try to wrap up the Q&A about 10 minutes before the top of the completion hour, just to give everybody a break before the next session. I wanted to share something with everybody. This wasn't on my arm about a week ago. I've had this for years, and it was on a doorknob that it sort of caught my attention. And you know how when you get used to your environments, you stop paying attention to the things, right? A lot of what we're going to talk about with our brilliant presenters here today, Tara, Bree, and Henrietta, is how do we help patients step back into sacred attention, sacred relationship. Yeah. And all three of you, everybody on this platform, you're here, and I know who you are, even if we've never met. And everybody else who comes in today speaks that language too, right? So how do we get back in touch? We all have a drive to get back in touch. And my work in regenerative neurology, regenerative functional medicine, and food as medicine work is really about helping us navigate lifestyle. When I talk about sacred food, I like to say, the stuff that we call food and most people think of as food goes in here. We chew it, we swallow it, but this is food here. And thank you in advance for the beautiful nourishment that we're about to share, right? We're about to share a great meal. Food is idea, food is air. How are we being set forward? So anyway, my dad used to say, you'll get poked in the ribs until you get hit upside the head with a 2x4. And nature is subtle and perfect. And to the extent that we can pay attention sacredly, and to the subtle parts, lights go on. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to pay attention, at least for that moment, and grab this off the doorknob that day. And it's Hippocrates. Where the art of medicine is loved, there is also a love of humanity. Hippocrates. And so our speakers today, I think, are going to speak about the love of medicine. All right, we're going to hear some success stories, really beautiful work you all do. And we're certainly going to hear some success stories, but we're also going to hear some evolution stories, I think, not just at a personal level, but at a consensus science level. And again, that's sometimes not the tangible science. The ideology of science in recent generations, I think, has been handcuffed, hijacked into a place where it's what we can explain. And one of the beautiful parts of this platform all week is the inescapable, the inevitable conclusion, if you pay attention for any length at all, the inevitable conclusion that the uncharacterizable parts of science are also part of the scientific machinery. And that's a language that I think all of you can help us understand more deeply. So I'm going to pass it back to my dear Hasina. So I think we're going to start with Bree. Yeah, why don't you introduce Bree and bounce off anything I had to say too, by the way, because you're responsible for helping me elaborate that language the past couple of years.
Well, I love everything that you were saying, and the love of medicine. And we have come to a time of a shift where we don't think about things in the old paradigm anymore. And I am so grateful to be in the company of all these amazing healers. And we're all of us here, even like everyone attending, is a healer in some form or another. We all do healing in some capacity, but just to be grateful for these healers here, because here are people who are shifting the paradigm, and there are people who are looking at the future, looking at healing in community, connected world. So I'll introduce Bree first, and I got to know Bree because I watched her. It was actually, I wasn't there live. It was a video that I watched, and she was on a platform, and she was speaking about meridians and bringing in her intuition. And it struck me that she was so in the moment and so caring about each question that people asked. For those of you who don't know Bree, she's an acupuncturist. She also does sonic acupuncture, sound healing coming in there. And she's also clairvoyant, and just bringing everything together to care for the people who come with questions, who are looking for some direction. It really touched me just watching her work. And I'm sure, Bree, you can say what you do in a much better way. But if you want to add to that, please feel free to do that.
Well, thank you, Hasina, and thank you, Tom, for inviting me to be here today. It really is an honor to be part of this dialogue. And yes, as you said, I'm, the shingle says acupuncture, sound healer, and clairvoyant. And but what I really do is harmonize the nature of oneself. And I really truly believe that each person who comes to me, and I can bring them back into tune and into harmony, so the life force flows through them without any obstruction, is heals the world, because we are connected. We are a microcosmic reflection of the macrocosm. And so I feel that each person that I can tune, I'm walking my path and purpose in healing the world, and I do the work myself. So that's really what it's about for me. So thank you for that lovely. I didn't realize that that's how we came to meet. But yeah. So.
Well, thank you for being here. And I'll introduce Tara, because Tara and I have spent so much time together. We both took a deep time leadership and well-being course, and that was Tom took it as well. But this was about, what was it, Tara, a year and a half ago, something like that.
It was, yeah. It went quickly.
It did. And I got to know Tara because her voice is just so powerful, and yet you can hear the peace that she brings through with it. We were sometimes in group well, group discussions together, and we've had so many phone calls and got to know each other as friends. And I love that she she doesn't see healing one dimensionally. She sees the wholeness of someone, and she's such a deep listener. And Tara, that's something I so admire about you, that you're just so aligned and you listen to what someone is saying, and then you're able to respond to what they're saying and what they're not saying, but what they're conveying. So I appreciate that. And again, please feel free to add anything that I haven't said, because I haven't really said too much about the mechanics of what you do.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Asina, and good to be with all of you, and good to see you again, Henrietta. We spoke last year for a bit. I'm glad you didn't say more, because I find the longer I go, the less there is that I want to be said, almost, because there's so much here. There's like a response to what's happening right here in this moment, and so it feels like high praise to say that you experience me as someone who listens well, because there's so much information being exchanged environmentally to us in the subtle realms between each of us. And so I guess I continue to aspire to attune myself to that deeper listening. And I'm just excited to be here, and I'm going to pause right here. I'll say this before I pause. I professionally came through medicine, through nursing, and then raised 4 kids. But I would say that it was illness that actually put me most deeply into the connection with what it is to know energy and healing, and that the organism that is our body and our being, individually and collectively, is always orienting toward its wholeness. No matter what the symptoms are. So I'm really happy to be here and be in this conversation.
So many of us have that dynamic as our personal trauma as the wake-up call, yeah, and sometimes it's definitional, and that's one of the things, Tara, if you would like to say something about, maybe this is a deeper conversation for later, but one of the things that I resonated with so much was that you were that practitioner for your people, and not just your patients, clients, but the people around you. There's a commitment to having people find a voice and then find an appropriate way to share the thing that they've discovered, right? Which is our personal traumas, our collective traumas, at a larger ecosystem level. What we're up to this week with the entire World Unity Week platform is that very thing that you do with individuals. And I was thinking about that this morning as well. We're in a space right now where we, what was your phrase, response to the moment? And it's the only pathology is not looking in the mirror, right? Well, I shouldn't say the only pathology, but it's not calling X X. And we've become masters at calling X Y, all of us, individually and grander narratives. And do you want to say something quick about your work with trauma in that?
I would say that from certainly in these past 5 years, I've worked much more deeply. I've actually worked with the group that's working with Thomas Hübel on healing individual and collective trauma. And there's just so much for us to see that is they're the after effects of traumas that oftentimes weren't even known or experienced or named as traumas. So there's so much information in that, and any of our adaptations to that were intelligent at the time, and in the present, those conditioned ways of being, or those more habituated ways of orienting, even patterns in the body, they've reached their limit. And so now we get to look at, in a safe space and in a safe way and in a more holistic way, how to let those unwind. So I think I'd say that. And then, Tom, to what you said, that almost anything that we look at, we can look at it from so many different levels and dimensions, and that each of those dimensions and levels has a truth but if we fixate that as the totality of something, we're missing something far more. So I take this from integral theory that everything is true but partial. So I hold that sort of as we look at healing and what wants to be healed and transformed and opened up, that let's see the many truths in the wholeness.
Beautiful. Which points to your comment about not describing something too deeply. I experienced that earlier on one of the sessions as well, and I rarely find myself as one of the guys who doesn't speak. I tend to say way too much, which is my version of self-discovery as well, because I do consider myself a decent listener, and I attend to the person I'm speaking to, usually, unless I have a bone to pick, right? But in that space of saying too much, we cheat ourselves of the ecosystem dynamics of the holistic healing. And with that, Hasina, I'll pass it back to you as grand holistic healer, listener, Akashic Records goddess. Do you have anything else you'd like to say before I reel in Dr. Henrietta?
And no,
Because she's very reticent. We have to
go ahead. Reel in Dr.
Okay.
Henrietta.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Henrietta Altman, I'm being quite sarcastic, and she is a very courageous healer. Henrietta, excuse me, you've become a very good friend in the past few years. Swiss by birth, and I think you were headed for a business degree for a while, or you had a business degree maybe. Yeah, and you had your own personal awakening, which maybe we could talk about a little bit, before studying naturopathy and becoming a healer in the mid-90s, and redefining yourself and recommitting yourself to why you walk the planet. I know you as a very courageous, creative healer, and I'll follow Tara's lead and not say too much.
You mean because I'll talk too much as it is?
Well, I will have, rarely do you speak something, I'll say this, that doesn't generate a very deep need for the people listening to respond. And I think that is well, as a bright light of a healer and being there in doctor-patient relationship, that's the art of medicine, right? And from the opening quote, and it ensues because of a basic love of humanity. You have a very deep sense of self. You have a personal spiritual practice, and you've got a very large tribe of people around you who care about themselves, and that's probably the greatest foundational gift we give in therapeutics.
Yeah, I think, and it's lovely to be here with all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Manoj, for tuning in. I'm delighted you're here. Being a healer wasn't always fashionable. It was sometimes suspect, and it was considered something that you had to prove yourself. And in the in the holistic world of, let's say, being a doctor of naturopathy, you don't really technically have the right to call yourself a doctor or a healer, because the medical code has codified that and reserved this for the serious medical studies. My awakening, as you hinted at, came actually super early. When I discovered that I did not learn like other people, and I was not able to do anything like other people did. And when that happened, sorry for a minute, I'm getting a delivery. When that happened, thank you. I realized I had to find a way that would work for me. And so my work today has been informed for years. I've been in private practice for over 25 years, and it has been morphing. And like for all of us who do this work, we don't stand still, because you can't. I mean, it's not only that the consciousness changes and shifts, but also actually even more profoundly, the availability of people who are consciously coming alive and know things they did not know 10 years ago about themselves have increased. And I'm sure Tara and Bree, you both, I know Hasina and Tom, you do, but we notice this in the people we work with, and in generally in a larger society. So everything I do is coming from my own life experience. Yes, diplomas and certifications and all of that. However, it has to be condensed, and I think it has to be sluiced through and the funnel, that chaffin way, you know, like it comes down to what is your truth. And then you can only be that kind of a healer. Yes, and we do share, I mean, first of all, consciousness, rising awareness. So for me personally, that is not so much a doctrine or a dogma as much as each individual person ideally has come to me, and I talk to them before they actually do, to be absolutely sure that they're in the right place. And that is something that I want to do. And so for me, the current gist of my work is liberating people from whatever they have embraced about themselves that is not true, that is somehow been taught way back, that has a place in society from authoritarian upbringings, that is not true for us at all. And, you know, to bring that forth is that they have more light of themselves. They have more access to their own truth. And then the unfolding of that is obviously up to them. And the beauty of this work is just the discovery, you know, discovering together what it is that would be most appropriate right now, and to actually give them what I do often. I tell them, I'm standing in front of the door just in case you think you're going to get out of this, because you're here for a reason and you came freely willing, and we're going to explore this together. So of course they can leave anytime they want, but I promote that kind of a backbone because I'm there and because I can see who they are, even if they cannot yet.
Oh, I love that, Henrietta. And so my business coach actually calls that borrowed belief. And sometimes when people can't find that within themselves, you know, and you as healers stand in the space to be that for them, and to say that I'm here and I believe in your capacity to heal. I believe in who you are at your core. So that's amazing. And I'd like to ask you, Tara and Bree, in this conversation, we've been talking about, you know, like shifting yourself, how you, Tara, you mentioned that your healing work, it began with being in a space of what one would term illness. How do you feel that, like, shifting yourself as healer, do you feel it's the first step, and how do you do this? You know, just getting into the, what was the how for you? And, you know, same with you, Bree.
Well, I'm going to maybe demonstrate what's happening for me on an energy level right now. And that's that I feel, I actually have felt a couple of times like a movement toward Bree, like there's something that I can feel that I want to hear. I'm not sure what that is. And so if it's okay with you, I'd actually like to defer my response to Bree, because that feels most strong in my energetic right now.
I'm gonna catch that virtual ball that you're throwing my way, Tara. Okay, so, I mean, like, the first thing that's coming to mind is the word healer, and that's not something I've ever been comfortable identifying with, because the way that I approach the work that I do is healing is a natural state of who we are and our ability, and our bodies have that. And I see myself as removing the blocks that are in the way of, so the body can heal on its own. I awaken the body's natural healing intelligence. And it's echoing what, everyone else has been talking about. There are things that are in the way that are keeping you in a dissonant state or a dis-ease state that are, and so my job is to harmonize that, unravel that, unblock that, wherever the root may be. A lot of times I travel into other lifetimes and karmic patterns and things like that, and I believe a lot of us here do that work. And I'm gonna pause here. I throw it back to Tara.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's just added something. I can't put my finger on it in words, but I just can feel a fuller energy right now. And I would say probably from what you just said, that for me, working in nursing, it was there was certainly an attunement and a natural inclination toward what wanted to be healed, what was seeking to be healed. I think it still sat largely on the symptomatic level, and the root cause was itself sometimes a symptom, but I didn't see or know it then. And encountering illness myself brought me into a knowing, or my body actually teaching me. I remember a moment where there was a thought that, gosh, I guess this is where you feel like your body's betrayed you, but I didn't have that experience at all. I felt like it was my body actually expressing something, a language that I just didn't really yet know how to interpret. And so I can feel it right now. It feels really tender in my heart. I just felt this great appreciation, like something was being given or offered to me. And there was also fear, like, would I be able to walk this, and then the last thing I'll say is that there were moments that I was exploring things that were outside of mainstream medicine, more in holistic or alternative medicine, acupuncture and different types of body work, and exploration of like the emotional, sort of all the domains we live in. And I remember laying on a table in an acupuncturist's office one saying, like, how will I know what was, like, doing all these things? How will I know what healed me? And in the moment, it was like, you won't, because there isn't just one thing. There was just this attunement to something that was like, often not what I felt like I even chose consciously or from my own, sort of knowledge base. But I felt like I was being guided, and that included to be able to hold, or I don't know if I'd use the word embrace back then, but to be able to hold and stay steady even with the fear, in the presence of fear. That there was something that was deeper, that was guiding me, and the fear could be present there, but it didn't need to take me away from what I felt was the attunement of my of the wisdom of healing.
Beautiful. I love that. And you just helped me write down. Do you want to stop telling the truth, which is what the allopathic symptom-oriented, squash the symptom success story is, or do you want to tell a deeper truth? Right? Do you want to know? And when you were saying about how will I know, part of the borrowed belief that Hasina was talking about, I think, is the surrender of being the expert, the surrender of having the success story that I can tell a colleague about, or that I can tell somebody else about, right, in a way that they can replicate it. And who cares, right? Most of us, when we're going through big trauma, we don't care, right? And part of what we, I think, walk into is a space where I've experienced this in my world, progressively getting to a place where I don't have to prove anything. Now, am I going to get there? No, I was totally brainwashed into a place where, as a scientist, raised by a scientist, raised in a medical family, et cetera, and fully vested in the Newtonian world for many years, and still am. Obviously, here we are. So we still play those games, and I guess the question to the three of you is something like, what's your favorite way of shepherding people when you're in that therapist patient or therapist client relationship? What's your best favorite way of helping people not have to prove something to somebody in their life, to claim success rather than the idea of, I'm going to have to fit in with this new version of me?
I think in the way I work, it is pretty clear almost immediately in the way I choose words to communicate that I think the person in front of me is whole, is enlivened by God, creative force, is a sovereign spirit, and capable of achieving what they want to. So at that point, and I like what is in the notes. The borrowing belief is actually not very different than when you play with a good tennis player, or you play against somebody who's really good at chess. You borrow expertise from them, and I think all of us are able to hold that space for people's successful outcome. And so, in answering your question, Tom, it's, to me, there's no issue with their sovereignty, and the work that is being done is a matter of guidance and a matter of inherent intention and a matter of staying out of someone's way, however, holding a certain parameter that will move them forward. I had someone here this morning, and most people, when they finally get in front of someone who's doing body and emotions, they start to talk about themselves a lot. And free association is something that happens frequently. So you will have them go from Pontius to Pilate, in ways that is not actually serving them. But what helps me at that point is I watch how their storyline goes. I watch where they tell themselves a story that is probably no longer valid and they would love nothing better than to get rid of. So I put that in the back of my mind, and I've never actually spoken of my work in this way, which is, it's really that you're all bringing this out. Thank you.
That's the beauty of this platform. Yeah, you've got
indeed.
creative
Yes,
living
indeed.
here, and
Yeah.
even
And
people
there is this
whose mouths aren't speaking, right? Everybody here is responsible for Henrietta's breakthrough here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a descriptive way of explaining how whatever intuition works, however it works. There is a feedback that we carry as people who do this work for others that doesn't require publicizing or talking about it. It's just something that enhances the processes. Yeah, like that.
I love that. If I can, I'd love to add to that borrowed belief topic. You guys are talking and I have so much coming through, and then when it's time for me to share, I just want to, but in my language, I see it as resonance and templating off somebody. And when someone comes in, it's like we had all mentioned, it's like, okay, I feel where they need to go. This is where I need to guide them. And it's not just me doing this to you and for you. It's actually a very dynamic relationship with that process. And what they say is a crucial part of that, like you were saying, Dr. Henrietta. In my world, I'm hearing their organs communicate, right? So their spleen is talking, or their liver is talking, or the kidney's over here screaming out in pain. So that gives me some indication. And every time I'm not just doing, I'm inviting them to notice how they feel in their body. And I think that's where they embody that belief. That's where they connect with their sovereignty and their power, because I am about empowering people to be in their own bodies so they can connect with their own guidance and their highest self, because that part of them is going to know more than anything I ever do. I'm just able to see what's in the way. We can unravel those stories. We can use compassion and other vibrational tools to bring that back into balance, and they can feel the change. One of the things I love about the work that I do is they can feel the change right away. even when we work remotely, right? And so I want people to feel that change in their body so they know that something is happening. What I find a lot of times in this very, top-heavy culture of the mental world is that we're disconnected from, what's really going on underneath the surface. And our body is a repository of our entire self, of that wholeness, but also all our stories, all our traumas, and all our pains. And each time, as I said earlier, when we can unravel that for ourselves, we're unraveling that for everyone who's in resonance with that pattern. And so that transfer of belief, or that belief sharing, happens on multidimensional levels, and it's super powerful. The other thing that I help people do is, because the way that we're viewing the world skews the light, how it's projected into form, is I do invite them to reframe. So I feel I'm there to reframe and reflect what they're saying, and invite them to find words that have frequencies that align with their core energy, to really project that in a unimpeded, unobstructed, pure way into form. And that's really healing as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm
it's interesting
paraphrasing.
because what you're each saying, Henrietta and Bree, is resonates with me too. That I may be able to see or feel something that wants to come to life, or that wants more aliveness, but I am not fixated in the how to get someone there, and it's not absent all of the information that's simultaneously coming from the person that I'm working with. And I love the part that you just added about the words, because oftentimes there'll be these experiences of changes and shifts in the body, and someone's language hasn't caught up with the changes. So they're still living in more contracted language, which was part of more of the contraction of whatever was held in the body. And when those reframings really open up new possibilities for someone, how we experience each other in language, and that really feels like it opens up. That was really
There are so many ways we can talk about it, right? I mean, I so appreciate all of your ways of healing. Hasina and Tom, you as well, and whoever else. Shamima, your healing is unique in the sense that you make things happen that then can open up like a flower, right? I mean, there's so many ways in which the language is limiting. And so I noticed both from you, Bri, and Tara, and Sasina as well, that heart openness and the availability of the stream of love, and the stream of, I don't even want to call it healing, because many people say that that's what it is, but it really isn't. I mean, it could be that, but it is more that the presence of a core principle of life force that makes itself known, and that becomes a stream between people, whether they are in a whatever client practitioner relationship, or they're actually just people whom we meet. There's this, and that to me it's a little bit like the fourth phase of water, Tom, remember? Where we can see that there is water that it's almost gel-like on the surface, and you don't sink in, and you got to go quickly across because your gravity may take it down, but there is this floating. And to me, I kind of like see the whole field of consciousness like that, and we draw from it, we contribute to it, we exchange with each other, and that depth of awareness that we are all in there. And it's not a locale, right? It's this amazing experience of wholeness and of oneness. Yeah, somebody.
Well, what's coming to mind is going back to what you originally asked, Tom, about having to prove yourself, and I share that pattern with you deeply. And I started venturing into human. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with human design, but center, the conditioning part of that is having to prove yourself. And so all I do, for those of you who also feel that you have to prove yourself, and it can be a very debilitating state, is I ask myself, what am I trying to prove? And as soon as I ask myself that question, the answer is usually nothing. And then it diffuses that. And so it's this constant repetition of asking myself certain questions that invite me to align myself back to my own core music and my own heart note and my highest self, however you want to explain it. And so those aspects of conditioning, we can invite change just by asking ourselves these questions, that not yes or no questions, but questions that, we're seeking new answers. And our awareness begins to track where that might be in your own consciousness, and then you can get answers from that for yourself.
I'm going to shift gears for a second, because you just awakened a lot of our language here this morning is about connection and belonging and synergy and community and progressive separation from that natural ecosystem, right? The natural dynamic is Mama Earth knows what she's doing. Stop taking things from her and stop putting in things that aren't her, right? That aren't natural. Same thing in the physical body of every organism. In the space of this profound separation in the past couple of years, the profound fragmentation, isolation that we've been forced open. And I think everybody on this platform all week long would lean towards there's no question in my mind that we're all going to be awakened at some point. It might take a year, it might take 5, right? But this is a gorgeous self-sustaining and self-momentuming dynamic of people coming alive. And I guess I would pose something like, Bree, your comments were geared towards your description of your therapeutics is geared towards giving people permission to not be the guilt part of survivor, right? And here we are all coming out of the cocoon, and we deserve to be on the street corners speaking truth. And realistically, very few of the people who are in the know, in my estimation, it's a very large part of the planet. You ask most people, do you believe in the narrative, and what percentage would you what percentage would you predict would believe in the narrative? Most people would give you a very small number and say 2, 3, 4%. That's probably an overestimation. I believe that almost everybody knows right now and isn't speaking because they don't want to be survivor guilt-ish or whatever the metaphysical description of that is.
There's so much in there. Go ahead, Henrietta.
Well, I don't have survivor's guilt. I'm probably one myself, maybe not in the context of now. I am.
Well, I know you well enough to interrupt you and tell you that I think you're lying.
It's not that kind of.
It doesn't drive your life, but it's in there. And you're one who has crafted your life such that it doesn't look like, right? Whatever tiny, tiny little seed of survivor guilt you have, you've overcome it. And it's not an issue anymore. It's in there, right? It's an unexpressed gene, so to speak.
Fair enough. I mean, if you have parents who have fled the Gestapo and Hitler, I suppose you could count me in there by proxy.
Yeah.
I'm looking more
at your gift, what you've found.
I had to. we're all propelled forward in ways that we don't really control. It's like when they say you can't choose who you fall in love with. I don't know that that's true, but I seem to be experiencing it right now. So it is actually rather marvelous. And I am totally out of my depth. So the point being that I adore change and I adore uncertainty. To me, those are it's the juiciness of the shifting, So collectively for the last, I don't know, what do we call it now? 3 years, 3.5 years. It's broken open so much. It's broken open our hearts more than ever. And it's broken open the lies and the false matrix and all of that. And we will and are arriving at a new level of shared awareness. And I took a walk yesterday with a friend and I hadn't seen her for a couple of months. And it was like we were working our way through to language that was she discovering new, and I also had my own way of expressing. And it's a little bit like that we trips our way forward into conversations with people we are not sure are in fact informed and who have made choices that are not mainstream. And I think that includes probably most of us here. So those choices come from in myself, I think I had to call it willfulness at time because it was going against the stream. However, we need a certain amount of willfulness as people who are working with other people. And I, for one, I'm grateful for mine. So yes, thank you for pointing that out, Tom. I'd have to ponder that. It's an interesting observation that you have never shared with me until now.
Perfect divine timing, right? But that was interesting. As you were speaking about that, Henrietta, I found myself thinking, well, I actually don't think I have survivor's guilt. And Tom, you probably know me very, very, very well, so you could question that. But what I do find is that I want people to awaken, and I so almost want to drag them out of their sleep, into what is their light, and have them awaken. And sometimes that gets very depleting, because people make their own choices, they walk their own paths, and that's difficult. So that's the one aspect. And then Henrietta, you were busy saying about how I can't remember how you put it, like you stumble onto people who are awakened, who haven't made mainstream choices. And I feel there's so much attraction there, because often I'm having a Zoom call with someone on the other side of the world, and I'm able to just feel that and then kind of reach out. And we all want community. So it's wonderful when we're able to bring or come together in community and just share that, and share whatever that is, the sadness, the grief, the wanting people to awaken, or whether it is survivor's guilt.
I found myself a bit wanting to. I actually started speaking and I was still muted when Henrietta was on. I was with her in that I don't really identify with the survivor's guilt. And so then when you came back so strongly, Tom, with that challenge, I guess I would say to that, I can join you there on a level. But on a I mean, this is where we can fixate a little bit too much. We can find those places where what you're saying is true. I think I probably have a bit of even with the words awakened or Hasina, I was really moved just now when you said you want to like pull someone out of their slumber or sleep. I'm using different words, but for me, I actually that has relaxed so much in me. because I also see that whatever those elements are that appear to be what someone will call not awake or a slumber are serving things in the totality of this. And it's not mine to determine how and when someone wakes up. And even that word that or phrase gets a little bit tricky, because if I see someone as not yet awakened or myself, if I hold any of this, it leaves out a whole lot of information and experience that is already and always in its wholeness. So there's something about this as a relational process rather than something that's meant to get us somewhere. And I know for me, if I have an idea or an exhaustion, I feel tired or I feel frustrated, I realize it has less to do with what the other person is or isn't doing, but really that I am not touching my deepest longing, and where that has somehow been blocked in me.
Yes, I'm going to echo you again, Tara, and I also don't resonate with survivors. Guilt, absolutely, but survivor's guilt has a different flavor to it. And little known fact about me, I used to be a Montessori teacher, and so I kind of have ingrained in me that everybody learns in their own way in their own time. And my role as in the Montessori classroom is a directress. We're not teachers, but a guide, and to provide the right environment for them to learn the best way that they learn. We all learn in different ways in our own time. And so early on in this, transition of our world, I was meeting people in that energy, and I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to influence people in any sort of way. And I was like, well, what can I do here? And I pivoted, and I was like, I'm just gonna, and uplift people. I'm gonna get back to shining as brightly as I can, and that kind of echoes the bar that vibration that I can roll with, and that's going to, elevate everyone at the same time. And so and where I'm at in my life and the way that I view the world is I really see more on a moment to moment basis. The world is a reflection of my inner world. I take and that's really helped me make the most shifts. I mean, I have a foster. He's sleeping right here, 2 months old. I picked him up the other day, and he was in the other room first night here, crying like you couldn't imagine. I went in, tried to reassure him. Nothing was helping. I did all my little tricks, and he was still crying. And then the thought dropped in to try the compassion key, which is a new modality that I've been using and supporting clients with. And as soon as I would say these certain statements, and everything's directed towards me, not towards him, he would stop crying. And I had that feedback in real time. And it was really an incredible experience for me. And it was just another, validation of that outer world really being reflective of the inner world. And, those of us who work with people, I'm sure you've had this experience where a client walks in and it's the very thing that you need for yourself, and so we're healing ourselves together. And it's just such a beautiful process. I recognize that you and I are connected, even though there's an entanglement there. I mean, we can drop in so many different ways to look at the connection with one another as one, or as the divine mirroring itself in the form of another, as a reflection of those parts of myself that need more love and compassion, or reflections of the parts of myself that are already beautiful, whole, and light, whatever that is. However you engage and interact with it, it's a really beautiful journey, and I love it. I'm a consciousness explorer at heart, and it just brings me so much joy to play in this way and have these conversations with all of you.
Beautiful. Congrats on your foster. Are we talking about dog, cat, biped? What?
Dog.
Okay.
Dog. Yeah.
What kind?
Yeah. I think he's a lab terrier mix. His name is Ocho, and he's 2 months old, and he's just the cutest. So if anyone wants a puppy.
Very great. Thank you. Well, let's open it up for questions too. If anybody who's in attendance here would like to speak, raise your hand. If you'd like to talk to one of the practitioners. If you would not like to speak and you still have a question burning that you'd like somebody to attend to, feel free to put it in the chat there. And I'll just pose one scenario. If I came to any of you as a patient, as a client, and had my breakthrough, let's say we're a year or two into work and I'm feeling really great, right? And still reticent, still hesitant to carry the message out there. Oh, I can't tell my mom, she'd never understand. She'd never understand. Can't tell I can't be this for my friends. What are some of your sweet spots of dance to your own drummer sort of thing? Be the light, everything that you were just describing, Bree. How do you give people that sense of permission to, get out there, strip naked? World's waiting for you.
I would actually be curious, I think, first, just as you're describing it. It's hypothetical right now, so I'm going to where I can. But I'd really want to meet that person in what is it what's really important. What is it that they're wanting to secure, make a connection about in the telling? Because when something transformative happens to us and it's integrated, we can't help but live the expression of that.
Yes.
So if I want to tell someone, I would be in a conversation around looking for the place where that's a setup in some ways for trying to convince someone else or get someone else there. So if that person, and if we can uncover that that's a bit of the energy that's mixed into that wanting to tell, then we can come back more into that person's own body and being. And because there's probably someplace where they're actually not even fully owning and believing their own transformation. So it won't be conveyed. It'll end up being a conversation of trying to get someone to believe something I'm telling you. And this isn't about belief. It's about relationship and experience.
Got it. Gorgeous.
I really love what you just said, Tara. And also, Bree, earlier when you mentioned that everything that occurs is within us. There's no exception. I mean, triggers, this person shouldn't have said that, done that, whatever it is. It's internal, it's within us. And everything around us is geared towards waking up those parts of us that want healing or acknowledging or somehow balancing any of that, right? So to me, to create a space where such things can happen for others, I think it goes to the last question: how do we vibrate so high that we are able to give and receive from a space of love and alignment? And while that's not necessarily my language, what I made for that, to which I would like to answer, is that holding an intention for everything unfolding in its most appropriate and most spiritual, consciousness rich, whatever way for the person, that is the space I am holding for them. And I feel that with that intention, any encounter, it doesn't have to be a client. It doesn't have to be somebody who's a media freak and therefore doesn't really know what's actually going on. The waking up to that, which is your true power within yourself, which is a space of recognizing. And I have a little bit of a hard time with the in form of words, and the research, recognizing. So we have cognizance of ourselves. We have searched within ourselves. We are in a space of, maybe discovery, but also integration. And I think through a consciousness like that, holding that space for others to step into makes it almost like a no-brainer. And often it happens that they don't remember anything I said, but they just feel different. There is an experiential reality, and that is suddenly opening to them. And now with this, having said this, and they're in their own responsible placement within themselves, they will draw to themselves from the other parts of their lives more of what they could let go of or integrate or transform to.
It's beautiful. I love it because you all are saying the same thing that I would say in just another way. And then to answer your question directly, Tom, my question would be like, what are you trying to prove? Like, why are you trying to prove to them that you're having this amazing healing experience for yourself after all this time? Like, that was the first thing that came to my mind. And did you want to say something in response to that? And the other thing is, just like I said with Ocho, when you are healing in that way, people are going to change in response to you. Like, you'll see your outer world shift and change in response to the changes you've made, and relationships change just by you doing that work on your own. So 2 years out, you might not even have to have a conversation at all about it. And so I'm thinking back to like my clients, whose maybe spouses or partners didn't really necessarily embrace or that kind of work for themselves, but they would see them change over time, and that being in their presence with that and witnessing those changes began to make them curious enough to maybe embark on that journey for themselves. It's not, I don't really think that matters, but how my client feels is what matters. And there becomes a place where that kind of interaction or that dynamic or that trying to prove or wanting to connect in that way, it just dissolves. It's no longer an issue, and it creates more space and freedom in the relationship. And I find when I can access for myself that place of neutrality or harmony, I don't have to effort so much, and I watch it unfold before me in real time or shortly afterwards, reflecting that thing. So I would invite you, if this were hypothetical and you were coming to, I would say, well, what is the feeling you would like to have between you and this person? And then we would work on connecting with that feeling, because there's a feeling you want that you're not getting in that relationship or in that connection. And so when we can begin to connect with that feeling, that's going to generate that experience in your life. So there's something there that I would bring it back to you. I always bring it back to the self, because that's that perception and feeling that you have that's calling itself to attention, because there's something that's seeking integration and
Very powerful, very rich. Thank you.
Well, I want to sort of shift that, that question. And, a lot of people are more open to any form of, I'm going to call it energy healing. I really think that it's really being aligned with one. I always talk about being aligned with one's deepest truth, which is when you're vibrating high. But all this terminology, I think most people are open to this true healing, coming into alignment and energy healing. But when you need to convey the message of what you do, or if someone's open to it and they're considering it, or their loved one is considering it and they don't speak those kinds of languages, how do you convey that to them? Because I think that's a very practical thing in everyday life, that someone could have the opportunity to connect with us, but they don't speak those languages and they don't really know the dynamics of energy healing, or how it's about wholeness within oneself. I'd just like to know what you'd say. I'm sure that there are a lot of people wondering that.
In a way, for me, it's possibly easier because they come ostensibly to seek a naturopathic doctor. At the same time, I make it very clear in the free initial conversation before they agree to come how this works. And in conversation, you can find what it is that they know. So most people are already aware that there is a holistic, separate model of healing or of working within ourselves that is not what the traditional allopathic sector or the traditional the world, I think, Hasina, it's a valid question, but I think the world is so much more open that anyone who wants to look for holistic work is actually already aware and has listened to. I mean, there's enormous amounts of podcasts and videos and teaching opportunities and to increase the field. So I would say people who come to me of that there is something else other than, and others who don't come to me, they will have a question. Do you take insurance? Do you have a question? Like, do you work this or that way? Because they already in their mind have an idea. And again, I'm very intuitive, so I generally work with that as much as I can and then send them to someone if that's appropriate, who is more likely to speak the language. I'm going to work on a beginner's level.
Yeah, I would say I really have the questions really wonderful. I would say in the work that I do, there's not a fixation on a beginner's level in her work. It's that the work itself, or whatever expresses as the work, has an ability to meet someone where they are. So I am in someone's language, there's a conveyance of where there is a hold back in one's own energetic. So I think oftentimes with getting into work that isn't so clear, so familiar, it raises a fear in someone, and that already is an energy that's trying to be regulated. So there's a relationship to that and a real sense that this person, reinforcing that this person really is always in choice. There's nothing that they are going to be sort of forced into or confronted with that is not in attunement with the pace that's right for their own healing or their own movement.
And for me with acupuncture, I mean, not everybody is interested in the mechanics of it. They just want to feel better. So I don't necessarily have to educate them, but I do, because I'm a teacher at heart. And I let them, I point out the patterns. I'm like, oh, see, this is the kidney, and then this thyroid issue in Chinese medicine is also the kidney. So they can start to understand. I want them to understand their body. I want them to connect with their body. And I, like Henrietta said, metaphor, intuition, using that, and like Tara said, to meet them where they are, and using language that connects with them, because I'm talking to here while I'm doing all this other stuff and giving them an experience of that. And I think the experience of the healing that they're feeling, and the pain changing wherever the pain is manifesting, is the most potent explanation for
such very valuable perspectives, and I know that there are a lot of people who are looking for different ways of coming into wholeness, healing, and they just not sure how to do that's so valuable. Yeah, I think maybe it's time to open it to questions. Does anyone have any questions?
I'll happily put out a question. And this is the first time that I'm really speaking into this. So for whatever clunkiness there might be in it, but I, through an Akashic record reading a couple of years ago, I was identified as a blueprinter designer. And I have no idea like how many, of this type of, beings there are, in this space, but I can really feel the energy of that. And my sort of just coming into my own sort of embracing of that, and how can I serve in that way in a much bigger way. And so the question that I bring to this space is sort of looking for ways that much bigger picture of the download that I was given of sustainable prosperity for the planet, sort of from that space of really being able to anchor in with people, or with this bigger picture that then resonates with people on an individual level that are coming to and connecting on an energetic healing level with individual practitioners. That's not the work that I'm doing with individual practitioners. And even though I have felt a lot of connection with practitioners in my life in all sorts of ways, and through food and all manner of healing of myself, and realizing that it's all truly emotional healing at every level, sort of bringing that to the surface, sort of moving through that experience on an ongoing basis, is helping, looking into the space here of helping be of service in a way that speaks to that big picture, but also really is speaking to the individual experiences of people through your individual practices. So I don't know if that was too much to throw out of the table or not, but that's sort of for what that is. Or if there was a direct question in there, I don't know if maybe I didn't even actually ask one.
I very much appreciate your question, Jay. Since it is kind of like traveling in content, the conversation to be had is what makes you feel good. What turns you on? Where in your life have you felt that excitement, that connection, that joy? And somebody wiser than me suggested at some point that that feeling is your guide. When you get into a new situation or a new recognition of something that you resonate with, is it on the way to the fulfillment that this feeling, right, promotes, or that you remember having felt? And it definitely does not have to be in the same situation, or in a situation where there's something similar that happened. It could have been you were blissful eating an ice cream as a kid. It could just as easily be something really moving you now. So that feeling is a core guide inside of us. That's say, okay, am I close enough here? Is this going in the direction of where I would really feel good? So to me, the body as a barometer gauge is that helpful? I mean, that's where I've worked a lot with people.
Yeah, that is. It's really it is helpful. Thank you for that. I wrote down, is this for the joy? like, is this expression that I'm, about, is it for the joy? And actually, I would have been named Joy if I was a girl. And ended up with the name Jay, a few weeks into my birth. But that's so thank you for that.
Yeah, so I could add, do you have room for a little bit more input or question, Jay? Yeah. I'm curious if you can notice from your description, it was so full of energy and a lot of movement. What are you noticing in your own body, and having shared that here? And again, if this feels like something you don't want to answer on screen, but if you're comfortable, just take a noticing.
Like I feel the yeah, I feel like giving. I feel like I brought a gift to the space and to myself by speaking it into existence.
And what tells
Which
you that?
hasn't.
Can you just to help us a little bit, and if it's available to you, where is that noticing? What does it come up? How?
It's in. I can like feel it in my heart space, and just both the solar plexus and heart space of how to explain that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
The fullness.
It's good. Yeah.
Just the fullness of the fullness of the energy, and I guess it's like there's an uncomfortableness in it, but also it's like an uncomfortable giddiness.
Yeah. So I just want to invite us all to take like a real big breath into what you just, I feel the offering in the space, and I feel like I need more width right now. So I'm going to breathe more into my width and see what happens for you when you do. And as you are in what you just brought, I'm curious, and there's not a right or wrong answer, there's only what is here. See if it's available to you to breathe. You said, I felt I brought a gift to the space. I want to see if you can, in that breath, feel the receiving of what you just brought. I felt your giving of it. I'm not, I guess I'm feeling in my own body the wishing for you to be able to also see if you feel the connection back to you. Can you feel that we're here with you?
Yes, I can.
How are you doing?
I can feel the I can feel all of us dancing together, like energetically celebrating energetically recognizing each other and who we are in this space and who we are in the world. In dancing. Yes. Dancing a little, celebration, a jig of joy.
Jig of J.
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that it's available to just let your eyes even take in the people on your screen. Like let the world come to you. And thank you for the gift.
Mucho gusto.
Thank you. Melanie, I know we've got about 2 minutes left, but I'd love to give you the space to just ask your question, express yourself, whatever.
I was just wondering if any of you guys, I experienced this for one of the first time in my sessions about 6 months ago, is that I always have a spiritual team that joins me. So usually it's Mother Earth and Creator, Divine, angels, archangels, spirit guides of the person, spirit guides usually, and these light beings. Well, as I was working on one of my clients, they asked me to back off so they can continue the healing. And I was just wondering if this ever happened to any one of you.
All the time. I actually back off and I let them do the healing. I'm not doing anything. I'm just holding the space for whatever needs to come through for the healing to occur. And so like in my sonic acupuncture sessions, we do a lot of work with scars and surgeries, all sorts of things. And, I'm watching it happen. I'm not doing anything. I'm just playing my tuning forks and my bowls and
more and more, but that's what's happening. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Like just take it easy on yourself. It's a not doing. It's a not doing. For me, I see myself as a conduit for the frequencies and the energy that's needed in that session for whoever is there and wherever in space and time. And so they're going to receive exactly what they need. And I will literally I watched some spirit healers, as I don't know how else to describe them, come in and clean an old surgical wound that was abscessed, that was causing a leaky gut in someone. And so, that's above my pay grade. So I'm there to manage the space all the time. The more I feel that, I surrender to what is and just open that channel, the easier it is.
Thank you.
And I just want to add to that, think of, feel in yourself that you gave them that space and you created that sense of empowerment in them, that they could take it into their own hands and say, guess what, I can do this, or I can be this.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. And this was lovely. And I'm glad you guys answered a lot of different questions too, because as healers, sometimes we don't see all the potential we have within ourselves, and unless like our clients tell us and stuff. So I really like how you guys had that discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to close us out?
No. I was actually just thinking we were all trained in paradigm to say a good presentations and some footed concrete takeaways and stuff. I think we're all speaking a very different language, and I do want to acknowledge each of you. Thank you, all three of you, for the conveyor belt of your journey, and always still having your eyes open, still having it's a constant improvement, and a beautiful surrender of our previous understandings, which obviously worked to get us here, right? And you give people lots of freedom, each of you, to find the what's next. And I wanted to acknowledge Jay as well, because I also think that you suggesting what you did was a great gift, and you being able to speak out loud that you felt like you gave a great gift. That's, to me, one of the most important things that came from this session. I'll remember that for a long time. But and the new paradigm here is that more will be unfolded than the very valuable all broad, right? The value of any really sacred interaction, it's any sacred connection. The value is to not yet be seen. It's on the way. I had an old mentor years back in a growth and development program who was fond of the phrase "more will be revealed," and I was in a place where I needed some answers. More will be revealed. More will be revealed. And it occurs to me that the space that each of you creates in your therapy is you give people well, so it's a litmus test. If you hear more will be revealed, do you hear that as a shut up, you're not allowed to hear that now, right? Or do you hear that as, oh wow, very cool, I'm on the right path, outstanding, right? And it feels to me like each of you gives people the space to be the latter. So thank you for being here. Thanks for our exploration. Very meaningful.
Thank you for creating this space very much.
Yes, very much.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
enjoyed hearing both Tara and Bree. It's lovely to be in this space with you. Jay as well, Shamima, Manoj, Melanie, Hasina, Tom, all of us here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks so much. Be well.
Thank you, everybody. This was totally new for me. Never done this, never heard of this before. So difficult to digest it right away. I'll take my time, but it was very, very informative and very nice. Thank you.
You.
Thanks for being here, Manoj.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't know if Dr. Henrietta sent you the direct link to this session, but if you have a chance to explore worldunityweek.org to see the bigger picture, it's a great menu. Yeah, great
I will
menu.
check that out. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks again to all of you.
Let's all go do the
Beautiful
jig.
day. The jig of Jay.
Jig of Jay.
Bye.
Well, thank you, Shirley, Bree's mom.
Great.